first question. Exponential functions involve which one?
Multiplying.
Because the x in exponential means multiplying. What would be subtracting and adding over and over? All these would be linear, right? Alright, next one. Which scenario is exponential growth? So which one, what does exponential involve again? Multiplying. So which one of these involves multiplying over and over again?
3.
Perfect. Because we know if there's a percent or if it's doubling or anything like that, that it's exponential. What would the other 3 be? Linear, right? Cool. So if something's doubling, tripling, multiplying by a percent, anything like that, it's exponential. So remember, you might get things like that, but remember, yeah, your test is not going to go in order. So it's not going to go, okay, this first section is exponential, then the next section's quadratic. It's all going to be mixed in together. So you know that if something's doubling or multiplying over and over again, it's exponential. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. Next one. So what's the pattern that's going on here?
Okay, let me have
It's multiplying by 5. So which one is multiplying by 5? D. What could I also do with my points? Just leave that there. I'm sorry. Yep, so we could also plug it in. So the only one when I plug in 2, my answer should be 25. The only one that would get me that answer is if I plugged in 2 right here in a 5 squared. Come on, guys. You guys need to come on time. I'm starting like right when flex starts. I know that you need to come on time. All right, next one. This one is a little weird. So remember transformations? You guys remember that?
Yeah.
So basically, it's b, and so if it's in the exponent, that's your h. And so if it's in parentheses or in your exponent, that is moving left and right. If it's a big one outside, not in your exponent, it's moving up and down. So what would minus h be?
Down.
to love. On the right.
Right. Remember, minus h to the right. What's plus h?
Left.
It's to the left. Plus k?
Up.
And minus k.
Down.
So sometimes it will look like this. Sometimes it looks like this. It's saying take the function, and see how it's not in parentheses, the plus 2?
Yeah.
See how it's not in the parentheses? That means it's your k. So if plus 2 is your k, what would I be doing with this function?
Going up.
Up how many?
2.
2. So let's look at the end behavior. Where is the end behavior here?
4.
Right here, though. It's your y coordinate.
1.
1, right? So what should your new end behavior be?
3.
3. It should be up at 3. So which one of those answer choices has an end behavior of 3?
D.
This one right there.
Oh, wait.
See how it's at 1, 2, see how the dotted line went from 1 to 3, it went up to?
Oh.
3.
Yes.
Miss, the transformation.
So it's really weird. So
Like you said, right, like it first, just look. There's one right here. It was going left and right. Out was up, down, right. So this out is going to go up too.
Miss K, can you scroll up?
because your original one is saying take this function and it's saying go up 2. So we could see the end behavior in the original one is at 1. And so if we're taking the end behavior and we're going up 2, what would the new end behavior be? 3. And that's why we look at these different graphs and we see which one has an end behavior of 3. This one right here.
The next question is talking about.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Remember, you guys only get extra credit if you're present. I see you like in this for like 1 hour or however long this lasts. So this is how, remember, if it's in the exponent, what does that stand for? K or H? H, right? So minus H is to the what?
Left. Right.
Right. Minus H to the right. What's plus H?
Left.
Left. Plus K? Up. So plus K is going up and minus K is going down.
Okay.
So which one, it says which one is going 5 units down?
A.
A. Remember that the constant is always your K no matter what. So constant is always your K, or it's moving up and down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
What calls?
So remember, if it's in the exponent, remember this right here, transformations for quadratics. Remember we did this a couple units ago? You're given vertex form like this, and we're going to be going over that on your reference sheet. So if it's in parentheses, or if it's in your exponent in parentheses, it's going right and left. It's still that same minus h is to the right, plus h is to the left. And then your k is the same thing as a k right here. So it looks a little bit different, but transformations are basically the same. Remember, you also, only the first 10 questions of your milestone is no calculator. Only the first 10 questions of your milestone is non-calculator. The rest of your whole milestone, so there's section 1 and section 2. The first 10 questions of section 1 are no calculators, just 10 questions. Then you keep going, because they're not going to say go to the next section. You have to do that by yourself. So you submit that section, and then you go right to B, and you can use your calculator. And then the next section, you can use your calculator the whole time, too. So make sure on Thursday or in support period 1 tomorrow, we're going to be going over those calculator tricks, because most of your tests, you can use it.
We'll get calculators.
What do you mean? Just like, you'll have your calculator for 3/4 of the
That's my
test.
damn calculator. My calculator's on appointment on Saturday.
Yeah, so I have volunteers coming to figure out how many calculators we need, how many we had, so on. So we'll figure that out.
Okay, well, my calculator like that don't come until Saturday.
Okay, what can we do with my answer choices?
Plug him in.
Plug them in. So the only one that works is which one? When you plug it in, not A. Because look, this is saying 1,000 is your y-intercept, but it's not when if you're A1. Only one that works actually is C. So when you plug in, you can use any point. Let's plug in 3. And so instead of x, I'm going to put 3. What's 3 minus 1? 2. And when you put this into your calculator, you should be getting this number. Remember, you can always plug it in, And so this is explicit form, right here. So that geometric, explicit. This one, all it's saying is instead of x, what do they want you to plug in? 12. So which is the original equation?
D.
It's saying instead they just plugged in 12 for x. They're just saying what's the original equation? It's D. Don't make this harder than it has to be. All right, next one. What's the pattern that's going on here? You're multiplying by 6, right? So is that exponential or linear?
Exponential.
Which two aren't linear?
B.
Or two aren't exponential?
B.
B,
Oh.
A, right? And then right here we see,
I was A, not conventional.
because right here, what is 6 considered? What is 6 considered? Not your slope.
Oh.
So remember, that means you're adding 6 over it. Not D. Well, let's take one and figure it out. If we're multiplying by 6, remember, that's your growth factor. So 6 is your B. So it'd actually just be 6 to the D, or 6 to the X. But what do we always do with our answer choices? Plug them in. So if you plug in even 1, 6 to the first power is what? 6. What about if I plugged in 1 right here? 1 to the 6th power is what? 1. Does that equal 6? No. So throughout this test, just make sure plug it in, if all else fails, right? Great, next one. So range, what does range mean?
Y.
Your y. In this case, that means up and down, right? So what's the smallest y here?
0.
Not 0. Look at the dot.
Is that 5?
Yeah, it's 5. And so it's equal to 5, and then it's getting greater, right? And we know here, P, they are considering your y. What does P stand for in this situation?
The population.
Population. So we know that each time it's going a little bit up. So we know it can't be any real number. Remember, real numbers mean rational and irrational numbers, right? Okay, I'll get you in a second. So, real numbers are rational and irrational numbers. Okay. And I can't have an irrational person, right? So, that wouldn't make sense. Any whole number greater than 0? No, because what's the smallest one here? 5, so it can't be that one. And then we're between this one, but we see the smallest one is 5, so it could be equal to 5, right? So it'd be D.
Wait. You said it's greater than 5. So.
Well, this one is equal to 5, right? Because it's starting at 5. So it starts at 5 and then it goes up from there. So it's still equal to 5. So it could be greater than or equal to 5. You don't need to let me. Does that make sense? Okay. Next one. It's looking at the height. Is your height your x or your y?
Y.
Y, right? So it's saying when your height is 10, what bounce is that? 1. Exponential questions on your test are not going to be that difficult. It's just understanding. All right, which equation represents this? So what is this line known as right here? End behavior. It's also your asymptote, right? End behavior is what you need to know for this class. So end behavior is at the end of your equation. So which one, what is the end behavior here? 2. So which one has 2 as their end behavior? B. Still 2's at the end right here?
Oh.
Positive 2. So end behavior is just the end of your equation. Yeah, so if I were to plug in, and you remember, you can use your graphing calculator. So you can plug this right in, 2 to the x minus 1 parentheses plus 2, and it should look just like that. Always use your graphing calculator. All right, what could I do with my table? Plug it in, right? So we would at first think it's 3, right? But what's 9 times 3? 27. Is it 17? No. So we know it can't be that, so it's not multiplying by 3. And we know it's not adding 3 each time, right? Because that's my slope. So we know it's got to be one of these two. So let's pick a number. Let's pick 3, right? And figure out which one will give me 9. So, see how when I do this, what is 2 to the 3rd power? 8 plus 1. And what about this? 2 times 3 plus 3. Do you guys see how it gives me the same answer? You got to go to the next one. Or pick one in the middle. So don't just go with the first one that makes sense, because they're going to do that on purpose. They're going to give you 2 equations where the first one usually works for both. So let's try the second one. 2 to the 4th plus 1, and 2 times 4 plus 3. So what's 2 to the 4th? 16 plus 1. And 2 times 4 plus 3. So which one would be my answer? 3, because we want 17. Does that make sense? So you can always use your table.
I want a number that's a variable, so yeah, and yet you keep saying again.
Okay, which one? The linear one?
For 3x, a variable.
2x plus 3, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so what that means is that when we're doing linear, you are multiplying, right? So if I'm trying to find the 5th term, you would plug 5 in and solve. But really, you're adding 5. You're adding 2 5 times over and over. So slope is actually just adding over and over and over again. It could look like multiplication, but you're not multiplying each time. So like if this was 2 to the x, that means I'm multiplying each answer by 2 and adding 1. Here I'm adding 2 and then adding 3 to the answer, right? So I'm doing 4 times 2, which I'm adding 2 4 times. Then I'm adding 3. So slope is next to it. When you're plugging it in, you're multiplying, but you're really adding over and over again. Does that make sense? Yeah, I could see why that's confusing. All right, so this is talking about the y-intercept of this equation. Which number is the y-intercept? 5,000. So which ones can I eliminate off the bat? 1 and 2. What's another word for y-intercept? Starting. Initials. What's your answer? Consistent. Does that make sense? I'm going to go to it in a second. All right, 14. So they're getting this equation, and they're saying how much more is the car worth after 2 years than after 3? So what do you think I'm going to plug in for x? 2 and 3. We want to see the difference between them. So all you're doing in your calculators, you're putting 2 right there, and then you're doing the same equation and plugging in 3 right there. Yeah, because they're saying y equals your value. And so what do you get for the first one? 15,900 what?
No, that's
I got 8.
That's for 3.
Oh, that's for the other one.
18,490.
Yeah, 18,490. And the other one was what?
18,900. Honestly, go down.
Because if something, see how,
Appreciate.
yeah, and see how, what's the number, what is your B? 0.86. And remember, when it's less than 1, is it decreasing or increasing? So it's depreciating. So then what do we do with these two answers? Subtract them, and what do you get?
A. First one.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought when it's decreasing, like we supposed to find like what a piece of value.
Yeah. So Jada had a good point. So she said, I thought when it's decreasing, we need to figure out what it's decreasing by. Only when the question asks, which there's a lot in here, what is it decreasing by, or what is happening in this problem. If it doesn't ask us that, then we don't need to do any of that. But we could see that it is going down.
So how would you know it's like subtract?
Because it says, you need to understand what the problem's asking. It says how much more is the car worth after 2 years? So here's the car after 2 years, and then after 3 years. So remember we even did that car payments? Remember we did that little project? And so remember we could see the value of the car went down. So we can see that the more years that pass, the less the car is worth. So it's kind of understanding the question. Okay. So this is like what Jada was talking about. So it says, is it asking for the rate? So remember, factor is the B. What is inside the parentheses? So what is your factor here? 1.017. If they just asked for the factor, that would be your answer. But they're asking for the yearly rate. What does 1 mean? It's growing or it's increasing, right? So 1 just tells me it's growing. Then how do I get this into a percent?
My name is Reggie Day.
My name is Ryan Peasley.
And so what do I get?
Presenting you the daily announcement.
Move it twice.
There will be a Betty Club meeting on
Yeah, I'm
Wednesday.
Okay, so does everyone understand this before I move on?
Yeah.
All right, this one's kind of weird. So this is saying, when would this first equation be less than the second equation? So you always want to start with the smallest one and figure out, and try each one and figure out when would this answer, the red one, be smaller than the purple answer. Remember, you can type both of these into y equals. So you can type into the first y, 3 to the x, and the second y, 2x plus 5, and just look at your y values. And look at each of these x's and figure out when would one be smaller than the other. Or I can just plug it in. And so when you do that, the only one that works is this one right here, because 3 to the negative first, when you put that in, is actually 0.333. And the purple one, when I plug in -1, ends up being 3, right? And so that's the only one where the purple one's bigger than the red one.
Would we definitely get a calculator?
Okay, so
Yeah. So you can even go on y equals, and I always make sure, even though you think you're remembering the calculator stuff, you go to y equals. So remember, click on that y equals button, and where it says the first y, you would put 3, and you use a caret to do exponent, and then that x button, comma t. And then the second y, you would do 2, that x button, looks like that, plus 5.
Basically, how do you use the table again?
And then you do second graph to see a table. And so you would just go to each of these x's, because it says the value of x, you would go to each of these x's on your table and figure out when would the first one be smaller than the second one. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, company A, and this has to do with your arithmetic. What did you say you were writing? Okay, so the next one has to do with your arithmetic and geometry. And so I'm going to just pass out these reference sheets. If you're not going to keep it for Thursday, then just give it back to me. But I'm giving you these.
Are we not going to talk about this in your first period and third period?
No, we're going to be doing this after school, or if you can't make it, then I would try to come tomorrow during the first period. Because I'm going over it first period tomorrow.
So I have to school.
No, because I'm going over it first period. So take a look at where, and we're going to be breaking this down. See where it says arithmetic and geometric?
So let's say we're going to go to this.
Not in class. We don't have. We only have one more class period, so we're going over post testing. And so, do you guys see where it says arithmetic and geometric? So arithmetic, we would know we would use arithmetic on this one, because see how it says the first month? Do you guys see that? And so when you see the first month instead of like initial or starting, you know you're using arithmetic and geometric. So let's figure out company A is offering her $10,000 for the first month and will increase the amount each month by $5,000. Would that be arithmetic or geometric?
Arithmetic because it's added.
Yes, because it's added. And so do you guys see where it says explicit for arithmetic, that equation? It says like this, A to the n equals A1 plus n minus 1 times d. Do you guys see that on your formula sheet? So what that means, A1, what does A1 mean, do you think? The first term, right? And so what is your first amount? 10,000 plus n minus 1. And what's your d? 5,000. D is just your slope. And so you can literally type this into y equals still. But instead of n, use x. So if you're going to do it into y equals, it'd be 10,000 plus parentheses, x minus 1 parentheses, 5,000. So you can still type these into your table. So that's company A's equations. Then company B's is talking about doubling. So what type of equation would that be? Geometric, right? And so that explicit equation is A to the n equals A1 times R to the n minus 1. And so that equation is given to you. So what is the first term in that one? 500, right, for the first month. So do A to n equals, and I would use 500.
The second term would be 10,000 because they're doubling.
Because it is doubling. So you could sit there and do it that many times. But the reason we put you explicit is so that I can just plug in these numbers and get my answer. But if you want to do Andre's way, that would be recursive. So like if I was doing recursive, the recursive means take the term before and this is what I do with it. But that takes a long time. What is your R though? If it's doubling. 2 to the n minus 1. And you can type that right into your y equals too. Just make sure you use x instead of n. Then it says, for which monthly company payment will company's B payment first exceed company's A? So we want to know when will this one be bigger than the first one. And so see how it says first? When will it first exceed? You need to start with the smallest number. So what's the smallest number? 6. So you can either type these equations into y equals, both of them, and go to where x equals 6, or you can plug in 6 for your n's. When you do that, the geometric is not bigger than the arithmetic. But when you do 7, it is, and I'll show you why.
You put it as 1.
N is your term number. So these are all your term numbers, which is usually time. Yeah.
And we put the number as for n.
Yes, for n. So I'm doing it right now. So instead of n, I'm going to try out 7. I tried 6, it didn't work. So if I try out 7, I end up getting, what is 5 minus 1? Or sorry, 7 minus 1? 6. are you typing it in y equals, or do you want to go do it through your calculator? I'm taking this equation and I'm plugging this, starting with the smallest one. I'm telling you, when I plug in 6, this one is not bigger, so I know 6 is not my answer. So you go to the next biggest one, which is 7. So even though it says 6 right here, it's n minus 1 is part of the explicit equation. So I would do 10,000 plus 6 times 5,000. What is 6 times 5,000? Uh-huh. And what's 10,000 plus 30,000? 40,000, right? So that is for the first one. Now let's try the second one. What should we put for this n? What n are we trying out? 7. What is 7 minus 1? 6. And so type that in your calculator. 500,000 to the 6.
I don't calculator. It doesn't tell you.
Make sure you do exponents before multiply. Just write 500 parentheses 2 to the 6.
So 32,000.
32,000. And so here's another example. This is the second one. We want to find out when that one's greater than the first one. Is it 32,000 greater than 40,000? No, so I would have to go to the next one. So you would keep going.
Why did you say it was because 32,000 is less than 40,000. Well, I was trying to figure out company A.
I put 7 in the answer.
Trying to figure out company A is bigger than company B.
Yeah.
Wait.
Well, no, you want to find when will companies B be greater than A's? When will B's exceed company A? And so you can either, the easiest way, and I would try this right now so you understand what I'm saying, is go to y equals on your calculator and type these two equations in. 10,000 plus parentheses, instead of n, just use x minus 1. Like, type in this equation and this equation. Where is it? And then look at the table and find which x, 6, 7, 8, or 9, is the second one bigger than the first one. And I can walk around real quick if you guys want me to help you. But this is something you probably want to see. Type in each of the equations. And I can help you. If you need help, raise your hand. So you remember, you get a calculator for most of this test, so you want to make sure you know how to do all those
I can use this.
ins and outs. And that one doesn't work. I can. Do you guys get what I'm saying when I say at the table? I would try to. You guys want to you're trying to find what.
Everybody wants to talk. I mean, just as they get you shut up.
You can't grab me no calculator. Well, let's see the picture. You know you got this going on.
All right, we're done. Is it 500? Did I write it wrong? Oh.
It's 5,000.
Yeah.
It's 5,000.
So put that in y equals, Miss K.
Yeah, it is 5,000.
Miss K.
Yeah, it's one So make sure you guys are writing this in. Let me see
Miss K. Do we plug this in y equals?
Yes, you're putting both in. So both
So
equations.
like 5,000 and parentheses 2.
Wait,
Dude,
make
that's
sure.
supposed to be an exponent.
Wait, which one are you doing? This one or the first one?
This one.
Oh, it's that's 500 though.
Oh.
And then the caret thing. Does anyone else need help with this? Raise your hand so I can see.
I need help.
Yeah, it's
Shut up.
Does anyone else need help with this? Second graph.
Oh, ah,
You're typing it good, but this two stars. You guys need help? So you're writing that first equation. Yeah, and so instead of n, you're just
They added things to the television.
You know, you just have those like friends that sit like, you know, you just have, and they breathe in the same air. So I just want to feel on Friday. I just you can feel it on my face. Oh, don't touch your girl. That's it. Just clearing.
All right, let me go over this one more time. Yeah, so you're putting company A's equation. Company A's equation that we made up was 10,000. So in your first y1 or y equals, you should click on y equals. Guys, in y equals, and you're typing 10,000 plus parentheses. Instead of n, what letter should we use in your calculator? X minus 1 parentheses 5,000. Should look something like that. And your second one is the second equation we came up with, which is 500 parentheses 2 parentheses x minus 1. Remember, use the caret. Make sure x minus 1 is in the exponent. Then you go to second and graph to look at your table. And you're looking at 6, 7, 8, and 9 and figuring out when does the second column surpass the first one. So you're looking at 6, 7, 8, 9, and you're figuring out when does the second column right here, this Y2, surpass the first one. Does that make sense? And when you look at it, when you go to 8, 8 is the first number where the second one is bigger than the first one. So that 8 would be your answer. Does anyone else need this up? Can I go on? If you still need help, just start it, and I can stay after for a few minutes, and you can go to your class a little bit.
so it's
All right. Guys, this equation is being used to calculate the amount of money in a savings account. What does 1.02, what does 1 represent? Increase or growth. So which one is not right? D pigs. It's got to be bigger than 1. Then we look at the R, which is 0.02. But how do I get it as a percent? And so what's your answer? 2%. Because remember, your B is actually just 1 plus or minus R. So we're trying to find R. All right, next one. This is the one that a lot of us get incorrect. And so this is what, like the questions that Jada was asking, these are ones that you'll see a lot. So first of all, which number is our B, or telling us if it's increasing or decreasing? 0.78. Is it decreasing or increasing? Because it's less than what? 1. So which 2 can I eliminate?
C and D.
Okay, right? Then be careful. We need to figure out how far, and this is important, how far is 0.78 from 1? 1 minus what equals 0.78? 20.22, which ends up being 22%. So that's important because when we're increasing, we could just take away that 1. But when we're decreasing, you need to figure out, okay, I always think, how far away is 78 cents from $1? How much more cents do I need to get to $1? 22 cents. So that's how you know what's
So that's
decreasing.
why it's. So it's.
Describes basically what's going on. It's decreasing by 22%.
So the only time we'll see is when we see rate of change, when they're asking for rate of change, is the only time we'll have to do it first. Like, we'll see how far it is.
Rate of change in this case just means like what's going on.
How do we know?
Sometimes, guys, can we please be quiet? I know you have a test today, but I want to get through this. Sometimes they'll say, usually when they use rate of change, they'll say like find the rate of change when x is 3. They'll say something like this: when x is 3 to where x is 5. And we'll actually get to that last.
That's a break.
Then you're just finding the slope of those particular 2 points. But when it just says something big, like this, right? They're just asking us what's going on.
So
So the last question that we're going over today is a rate of change question.
So when will we 70?
It will never be 78 because it's not the 0.78 is your decay factor.
So when they're asking for
Factor.
factor, then it will be perfect.
Yeah. So like
How would they ask on the last one?
if they ask for a factor, it wouldn't be any decreasing. It would just be 0.78. No percent, nothing like that. Not decreasing. 0.78 would be your factor.
So the answer would never be 78.
No. Never. All right. What is your end behavior here?
7. It's -7.
-7. Which one has an end behavior of -7?
C.
It's not exactly.
Because it's past -6, so you can see it's going down towards -7. It will be pretty close. It's not going to be that big. It will be like almost. I made this question up, so what could you also do with the equation?
Plug in.
Oh, wait.
Put it into y equals and see what the graph looks like, right? All right. They want to find the y-intercept. How do I find my y-intercept?
You plug in
Plug in what for what?
0 for y. No, wait. 0 for x.
0 for x. So let's try this one. When I plug in 0 for x, do I multiply first or do exponents? So what's anything to the 0 power? 1. What's 2 times 1? Is that 5? No, what's the only one that gives you 5? Nope, because 2 to the 0 is what? 1. 1. What's 1 plus 5?
6.
Then this one, what's 5 to the 0 power?
1.
1. So that's not 5. So this is the only one that works, because if I do 5 times 0.9 to the 0 power, what's anything to the 0 power? What's 5 times 1? That's what I want. T, when I plugged in 0, anything to the 0 power is 1. 1 plus 5 is 6.
So it's the 5 and then it's not linear, right? That's
This one, this is saying,
exponential, right?
yep, but remember, this is saying take this function and move it up 5.
Wait, so
But remember, your exponential functions always start at 0, 1. So that's why when I bring it up 5, it ends up with 6. All right. Make sure if you guys want extra credit, I need to see that your devices are away, you're interactive, you're doing what you need to do. It's the only way I give it. All right, domain. What's a domain of exponential function? X, and it's all real numbers, right? It's going, the arrows are going forever, side to side, right? So 22 would be all real numbers.
The range.
The range is y is what? So here's the smallest it is, 2. Is y greater than or less than?
Greater than.
Greater than. See, the function's always greater than 2.
What would it look like if it was not?
If it's not what? It would be like from here.
Isn't it still going? It's greater than.
Yeah. So the only way the exponential wouldn't be all real numbers for the domain is if it was something like this, where it was like 1 point right here to 1 point right here. Ooh. Yes. Long bit. Does that make sense? Yes. Last one. What does rate of change mean?
no. Oh yeah, Oh.
And you can see,
And change your wife.
you can see the first two things across the way on your formula sheet are the slope equation, and it says average rate of change. It tells you what it is. So it's asking for when x is 2 and x is 3, or it could look like this. That means the same thing. See how they're not coordinates, they're brackets? If they're brackets like that, it means when x is 2 and when x is 3. So when x is 2, and I drag it up, what's my y? 4. And when x is 3, what's your y?
5. I got it right, so.
Wow.
And so now let's write our equation. So our points are 2, 4, and 3, 5. And what do we do first? Label, label, label. And then plug it in, plug it in. So I have 5 minus 4 over 3 minus 2. What's 5 minus 4?
So 1 or 2 or 3.
So why would it, let's say the 1/2 and 2 and 3?
Pardon this interruption. Jordan McCrary, please report.
Because I couldn't see the line and that actually wasn't right.
For dismissal.
Because at 3, my eyes are like blind right now. It's at 6. See? At 3, it's actually at 6. So this number right here should be 6. What do you mean? Your graph will be very, very, very clear on your page.
Okay.
Or on your computer. Test. Because let me start over.
No.
Yeah. Let me start over, but I cannot hear talking. When I hear talking, that's not it's an extra credit collaboration.
Okay.
You working with me. So, I'm starting over. Fully. Average rate of change means what? Slope. So I'm finding the slope in here. So remember, this function is not a slope, right? We have growth and decay factors, but not a slope. When they're asking for an average rate of change from x equals 2 to x equals 3, I'm just finding when x is 2, I'm dragging the line up and seeing what is the y coordinate when x is 2 on that function? 4. So my first point would be 2, 4. Then you're going to your second point. So it's asking also when x is 3. So I go to where x is 3 and I drag it up. But my eyes are blind and it's actually at 6. But it will be very clear.
Okay, but how is the last step? My eye could be 5.
Because it looks like it fell at 5, but I
So it is 2.
yeah, so it's 3 and 6. Then you label. I made a mistake, right? Label, plug it in. And so I get 6 minus 4 over 3 minus 2. What's 6 minus 4? 2. 3 minus 2? 1. So your correct answer is 2. Remember, rate of change means slope, right? But this function, they're just asking from this point to this point. If I were to draw a line from one point to the other, what would the slope be? How fast does it change? 2, right? But if real quick, please. Christian. If I were to find the rate of change from like here to here, what do you notice about this rate of change? Is it steeper or flatter than the other one?
It's
steeper, right? So as the average rate of change or x's go up, the rate of change gets bigger.